Hey guys, it's your girl Kizzy Rock, and yes, Kizzy Rock is my birth given name. Happy Thursday. Want to say hey to all my subscribers, new as well as season. I got a word for you. Tap in. Happy Thursday, guys. So, one of you guys commented on my last recording, and you said something to the effect of you're an overthinker and it's trauma induced, or it could be trauma induced, something like that. So when I read that, I got a conviction about a download I received a couple of weeks ago, and I was supposed to make this recording. So I'm glad you said what you said. So I want to elaborate really quickly. Many of you, your peoples already, and when I say peoples, that just means if God has promised you purpose partners, destiny helpers, kingdom partners, kingdom spouses, whatever, your peoples is ready for you. Where at some point, the delays could have been on the other side. They just weren't ready. God needed to clean some things up. Things like that. And while you were frustrated with the delays of God taking too long, you yourself also got convictions to work on certain things for your own healing process. But many times what happened is, it's easier to focus on someone else's mess versus sitting in your own. So you're frustrated with the person or persons that God has shown you or whatever. And it's like, what's taking so long? You're even frustrated with God because it's like, what's taking so long? And maybe even some of you even started your process, because for a lot of us, we started things again when we had that initial download and that initial sense of urgency to really get things done. Then we kind of walked away from things when things start to get quiet again. And this is why God is starting to convict some of you guys now to pick those things back up. Whatever, whenever, wherever your convictions were, that you received, that is part of your promise or a requirement for the promise, pick it back up. And this is why, again, a lot of you guys are feeling that sense of urgency coming back around. So when my good sis commented on the last video, here's what I want to share. More people are traumatized than they care to admit. More people are traumatized than even more than they know. See, when it comes to trauma, right, and trauma is such a broad spectrum, but when it comes to trauma, I think more people than not are traumatized in one way or another. More people are traumatized in one way or another. That trauma could have been from childhood. You could have been molested or sexually assaulted. That could have been rape in childhood or adult. Men or childhood or as an adult, men and or women. That trauma could have been from bullying, from heartbreak. Let it be from your first crush who rejected you. Let it be from that first serious relationship or marriage that you got left for someone else, or they just abandoned you, never gave you any answers. That trauma could be for parents who weren't there, mothers and or fathers. That trauma could be if you had parents who were crackheads and you were exposed to all that. Whatever the trauma is, it left you feeling unsafe. It left you in fight or flight mode. And so on. But all of these different reactions show up in who you are today. And these are things that you learn in therapy. This is why I'm so glad that many people are truly waking up to therapy, because for a very long time, it was almost taboo in our community for some odd reason. I think, too, it's because a lot of the times our ancestors and our great-grandparents and things like that, they were always taught to sweep things under the rug. They couldn't speak about certain things. So that stuff was passed down to you, just in their own ignorance. Ignorance just means not knowing. But you're chosen, and this is why it's coming on you more than everybody. You may have 25 siblings, but you were chosen. You answered the call. This is why you can't get away with certain things. This is why you get the convictions. Like, you have to go to therapy. You have to make things right with that parent who wasn't there. And you're like, why do I have to make something right by a parent who abandoned me? But you're chosen. You answer the call. So you have to do things different than the average person. So while you're sitting there and you're frustrated that God is trying to mend a relationship with a father who was never there, that father is going to give you something, some type of closure, some type of something that you need prior to God bringing your person. You'll be amazed how the relationship or lack of your father, or a parent, I should say, will affect how you show up in relationships. Another thing that's coming to mind, you might be surprised that when you go and have that conversation with the parent, the thing that you learn, you may learn that you weren't abandoned by him or her. Instead, it was the other parent keeping the other parent away. It was the other parent throwing threats, right? But now why is God bringing it back to your attention? Why won't that conviction leave you to go and have a sit down with a parent or a sibling or whoever that just wasn't there? Some of you guys, I had to do this one time, this right here. And let me just tell you, honey. Whoo, honey. This is why I always say it has to be obedience over emotions. Some of you are going to be called to have a sit down with your ex. You may have done nothing wrong. They may have done everything wrong. And I'm sure you had your stuff too. Let's keep it real here, right? You had your stuff, whatever you had going on. You weren't perfect. You're not that cute, boo. But some of you are going to be called to have a last sit down. And it's going to be to free that person. You'll be amazed how much baggage and residue stays in the spiritual realm because a person still has regrets about losing you. There's something that still tugs in the spiritual realm. And when it comes down to God bringing your God-ordained people, it needs to be no residue. It has to be clear. So that hate and that resentment or whatever you're feeling, and you may tell yourself like, I'm over it, or I don't have anything against him or her or whatever. But when their name come up or when you see them, it's still that little side eye. Like, oh, dude, you tried it. Oh, you tried it real bad, right? You still got that little something that's residue. So God may have you to free them. I forgive you. I release you. And I hope you forgive me for my pettiness or whatever you had going on too, right? I hope you forgive me. And even if you don't, I truly, truly forgive you. I truly, truly want the best for you. And you may not, you should want the best. I think it might just depends on how far in the process you are, but you will get to the point where you truly, and I mean, you mean it from the bottom of your heart. You want the best for them. And you can say that because you know that it's hindering you from God bringing you what is truly yours. So you will be happy to do so. You'll be happy to release a person, right? That trauma that they're in, they're drinking excessively, they're smoking excessively, they're in depression and whatever they got going on because they know they messed up with you. They lost a good thing and now they still got their lives in shambles, and they're still reaching out for you. They're sending kites looking for you. Every time you see somebody's got a message for you. All that stuff is residue. It's residue. Free people, let them go. Everything wasn't bad. Maybe you had children from the person. I'm sure there were great times at some point. I think people get caught up and they get stuck in relationships, even marriages, situationships, where it's almost like, but I've been with you 10 years. I wasted 10 years. No. It's only wasted time if you didn't learn from it. Because whatever you learn from it is what you will apply to the next relationship. You know what you're not going to deal with. You know the signs of a narcissist early on. You know. So if you didn't learn from it, then maybe you did waste time. I mean, I just personally believe in wasting time, right? Because whatever I learn, I take and I apply it and I keep moving forward like another notch up the belt. So to me, that you don't waste time. There are things you won't deal with now that you dealt with then. So you didn't waste time. You learn. For those of you who are trauma, you have trauma responses, meaning you respond because of your trauma. The crazy part about it is you may not even realize that's why you're doing it. You may not even realize that you're overly, obsessively clingy because your parent wasn't there or because someone left and rejected you. Everybody in school rejected you and left you off of the team, and you will do anything in your power just to cling on to people because the one person that finally shows you some type of attention, you have to hold on to them and just drive them insane by being obsessive and overly clingy because you think like they're going to leave you like your parent did. Or you may not even realize that the reason why you're so jumpy and you're constantly popping off at the mouth, you truth be told, if men, because some men got this on lock, if some men will have more patience with women, they'll realize that women that they claim who are very overly masculine or just constantly like in that fight mode, they'll realize it's truly just fear. It's really fear. It's fear that you have to protect yourself. If you've never been protected, your father is crazy. He's beating your mom upside the head with bottles and she's banging his head off with pots and pans, and you're trying to sleep to go to school and everything's being broken in the house, and you got crackheads coming in and out the house. You got like your mama's probably disappeared for 3 days on the crack bins. Now you're freaking out thinking somebody kidnapped her. Like all that stuff will make you crazy. Children should not have to go through that. So therapy will actually teach you and help you unpack this stuff. And sadly, a lot of the times, this is stuff that you may have to live with, but they will give you tools. They'll give you a way around this stuff, because if God brings your person tomorrow and you still have trauma responses that you have no idea how to, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know, but basically keep under wrap. Right? Keep under wrap with the tools that your counselor gives you. You're going to ruin it, because the type of person that God is bringing to many of you in this season, these are literally your purpose partners. These are not people coming to you because they're fine, because they have money, because she got a banging body. That's not what's coming. I mean, it may be an addition, but ultimately, these are your purpose partners. These are people that God is going to link you up to do purpose with together here in the earth. So these people typically are going to be healthy, right? Because God has been working on them during a separate time when you were being impatient about where are they. God was working on them, right? Or it may be somebody who didn't have as much trauma as yourself. But healthy people are not going to deal with traumatized people. God will give them grace to see why you are the way you are. Why in the world I'm trying to work? I'm working 12 hours per day to provide for you. But every time I get on a lunch break, I got all these text messages about I'm cheating because I didn't respond to your text message every 2 minutes, right? Now you're blocking the dude. This is the whole good man, honey. God done seen you this man. Now the man can't get in contact with you, honey. You done blocked the man. You done run away. You done move. And now all men are such and such. And the man was innocent now. He was really working, like seriously. He was really working. But all these different traumas that people have experienced, it truly shows up. I just had a flashback. So about 2.5 years ago, oh my goodness gracious, honey. I was somewhere, I don't know where I was. And I was talking to this gentleman, and I gave him my number. I mean, great conversation, just a little brief conversation or whatever. I gave him my number. I really felt like it was more of an assignment, if I'm honest. So I wanted to keep it on that level, but whatever. Like by the end of that day, I was at work. I was really, really busy at work. And I had like probably at least 30 missed calls. And so I was like, okay, first of all, that's already alarming, right? You're already about to turn me off. But then when I called back, literally, I mean, he blew up on me. Sir, I've known you for 47 minutes. He blew up on me. See, this is why I don't mess with pretty girls right now. Because y'all always lying. Y'all got choices out here. And y'all be, oh my God. God. Honey, I blocked that number so quick. But then even when I blocked the number, I still got a conviction not to unblock him. Actually, I did. I called back and I had a word for him. And the word was basically based around and I was on point. He had some trauma. He's like the good guy and like the bad girls, I guess. And one of his ex-girls or whatever, like cheated on him with his friend. And so after like having a conversation about an hour about the same topic, I realized it truly was an assignment. That's why I said on another recording, everybody is not for you to be romantically linked with. Some people are literally just a quick assignment or even a longer assignment. But you got to get yourself to the point where you're open enough to realize that somebody dropped you. A parent, a step parent, a foster parent, right? Somebody dropped your classmate, somebody dropped you. You got wounded. This is more people than not. So you're not rare. Probably 90%, I don't know the percentage, I'm just saying here. Probably 90% of people in this world have experienced some type of trauma. But you have to admit that somebody dropped you. You have to admit that every relationship looks the same. You're the common denominator. You run from everybody. You flip out on everybody. You start stuff. Nothing even going on, but you starting stuff because you see in your household, there was always stuff going on. It's war. You're literally in a war zone. So now you're in a war zone, and now God is sending you somebody who is so peaceful. Who is so peaceful. They're peaceful, they're quiet, they're solid, and you're trying to figure out, and now you think the person is boring. You're boring. What? No, you're traumatized. You're crazy. Right? But God is so good because God will literally, see, this is why I always say it's so important to let God send your person. Because when God sends your person, there comes a grace with that. The person will see you exactly for who you are, why you are that way. And most importantly, they'll have the grace to handle you and the grace to really deal with you. So whenever that trauma trigger happens, they're not going to take it all personal, right? Because after a while, you'll get tired of people judging your trauma triggers. So it becomes very frustrating because you're trying to figure out like, but I don't even want to be this way. I don't even want to be this way, but I can't even help it. And then on top of that, I got people judging the trauma response. So once you recognize that you've been traumatized, once you recognize that you were linked to a narcissist, listen, if a narcissist ever had a hand on you, your trauma, listen, that's a whole level of trauma that's going to really really call for you to build yourself or allow God to build you back up from bottom up. Seriously, from bottom up, because they turn your life literally upside down. You don't even know who you are. You're not even your own self any longer. So that's a whole process within itself. But if you follow everything that God tells you to do, then that process can, be helped a lot quicker versus you just trying to do it all on your own. God will literally tell you your instructions. He'll tell you who you got to cut off. He'll tell you who the flying monkeys are, and you can't be a part of the flying monkeys regardless if you like them or not. He will tell you, and it's not going to be things you want to do, but you're going to have to do it to save yourself. But before God releases your person, you're going to have to be able to at least get back to some settlement in your core. It doesn't mean you're all put together. Because I do believe too, sometimes people, the right person can cap. Like you might not be, you got to at least be solid in your core. But you still have some lingering something, trauma triggers, whatever, but it's not ruling your life. Yeah, that's what it's not ruling your life, but there's still some stuff. But the right person can actually help cap that. For example, if you've a person who've been traumatized because there were all this fighting and all this stuff going on and you never felt safe, um, then you're always in fight or flight. You're always looking for a reason to fight or a reason to run. But if you allow God to send your person, that person is going to have such a safe feeling. They're going to feel like home. So all that running and all that fighting and all that stuff like that, they will cap that because they will literally feel like home. But you got to do your part. See, God is good, but God does require us to do a part. We just can't sit here and feel like, well, I wasn't the cause of this. It's not my fault. Absolutely true. Not your fault. But as an adult, you are responsible to start a process. You got to start a thing. Anything personally that I've ever, like what God have ever blessed me with or whatever, he always required me to start. He never allowed me just to sit there and do nothing and then he just came and just, no. You have to take a first step. Once God see you really trying, then something just comes upon you. And then it's almost like it speeds up the process. So if God has been confirming and convicting for you to go to therapy for the first time in your life, to stay single for the first time in your life so he can really, really work on those core wounds, to work on forgiving a parent, to have a first-time conversation with a parent that you haven't seen in a long time, to release that ex, to relocate from that narc, to start over. Whatever he's been convicting you of, you got to take the first step, because we can want things all we want. God don't move off of emotions. And many of the time, if we're honest and if we're real, which people don't, I don't know, some people don't want to, just be honest and be real. We're the holdup. Sometimes we're in our own way, but we're so focused on other people's flaws that we miss our own. So when it comes down to destiny things and things that God, all caps, God is going to release in your life, there is going to be a requirement. That's only between you and God. There's going to be a requirement for you to do something. And when God sees you moving your feet, watch how things start to fall into place. It's your girl, Kizzy Rock.